welcome to my painting channel. I'm really excited because today I'm going to be sharing with you this painting tutorial, and it's done in acrylics and we're going to be painting this beautiful ocean scene, and I can't wait to take you through that. I'm going to share some amazing painting techniques that are really going to help up-level your artwork, plus I'm going to be sharing with you some really cool colour mixing techniques that I think you're going to really love. But before we dive into that tutorial, I just want to make sure that you are signed up and not missing out on the 3-step Seascape painting class. Now in this class I guide you through the 3 stages to take your own reference photo and turn it into a loose and impressionistic painting, and the feedback on this class, guys, has been amazing. People are really loving it. It's all free, so don't miss out on that. I will pop the link in the description box and I'll also pop it in the comments. When you register, you will get it through email, so it's super easy to access. There's no ads, it's all on my website. So yeah, I'll pop the link to that in the description box, and it'd be wonderful to have you join us. I can't wait to see you there. But for today, let's crack on with this painting tutorial. I'm really excited to show you. So let's see what supplies we're going to need. So the supplies I've got is a canvas board. You can use any size or surface that you like. You can upscale this to a big painting if you want, or keep it fairly small like me. I've got a palette paper, just any kind of palette will do. Colours are titanium white, orange, green, or a phthalo green to be exact, and blue, a phthalo blue. And I've got some water, an old rag. The brush I'm going to be using is a flat edge brush. This is called a Galleria 1-stroke and the size is 19mm. I like a flat brush for seascapes because you can have a variety of techniques, blending and also adding detail. And I thought it'd be fun today for us to try out some palette knife techniques. If you don't have a palette knife, please don't worry, you can still do the tutorial just using the brush. I'm going to be showing you how to do it with both ways, and if you have a palette knife then great, we can get experimenting. So I'm going to squeeze out my paint on my palette, get a nice drink, and let's paint. The first thing that we want to do is dampen our brush a little, not so it's wet, just so it's damp. So I'm going to take off any excess water onto just an old rag or a paper towel, anything you've got. And what I kind of want to do first is I'm just going to take a little bit of the phthalo blue, and I'm just going to map out my painting, kind of like drawing but with paint. And I want most of the painting to be about the reflections on the sand, because that's what I'm really drawn to here. So I'm going to put my horizon line about here. Feel free to put yours wherever you like, you don't have to copy me. And then I'm going to have like some really nice big thick green waves here, and then this is where I want my white water. I'm kind of just blocking it out in my mind to really help me understand the way this painting is going to be composed. And then this is going to be like my sand part. I'm going to have my clouds, and I'm just going to have a little bit of those kind of background cliffs in there. Just have those peeking out. So that's kind of like my basic kind of outline. And I kind of like to do this to start, just to compose and know where I'm going to put everything. So to start with, I'm going to take a little bit more water and I'm going to pop in my sky. So phthalo blue is very, very pigmented, so we don't want too much. We only want a little bit. I'm going to add some white to that to get a really lovely creamy blue. Pop that in with fast brush strokes, just going side to side for my sky. And you'll notice I am actually kind of going over the lines that I've already painted on. That doesn't matter at all. Those were just for me, kind of like mentally, more than anything. Okay, so now I've popped that in. What I want to do next is take a little bit of the phthalo blue on my brush, a little bit of a darker shade, and whilst it's still wet, I'm going to take that down from the top. I'm just going to take my brush, just kind of blending that down to give it a really nice blend. And then doing the same thing, I'm going to take a little bit of white and I'm going to blend that in from the bottom. And that's just going to give our sky a little bit of depth. Okay, I'm going to rinse off my brush now. And I think next where I want to go from here is I think I'm going to pop in kind of those cliffs. To do that, I'm going to have a little bit of the phthalo blue and I'm going to add a little bit of orange. And even though in the photograph they are quite dark, I don't want them so dark, so I'm going to add a little bit of white to that. I'm going to start off with the one that is more in the distance. So using the flat edge of my paintbrush, I'm just going to kind of drag that down because we're going to go over the sea, like where the sea comes to here. So I'm just going to bring that down like so. I'm just going to add a little bit of shape into those cliffs. Okay, and then for that one that's a little bit more in the foreground, I'm going to add a little bit of a darker blue. So I've got a bit of blue, a bit of orange, a little bit of green in there. And I'm going to think, I kind of want it to come up to about here. And then for it to kind of go up there. So we can pop on another layer, so please don't worry, this layer does not have to be perfect. We're kind of just blocking it in at this stage. I'm just going to bring that down. Okay, so now that those are in, I'm going to think about popping my sea, and also I've realised that the sky doesn't quite meet it, which is a major rookie mistake. So I'm just going to correct that now, just bring that sky a little bit further down. And like I say, this is just a first layer, and I like to go over these layers multiple times anyway, so don't worry too much. Right, so next what we're going to do is start putting in the sea. For that we want a phthalo blue. And I'm going to add in a little tiny bit of orange. That was too much. And a little tiny bit of green to get a really nice turquoise colour. And using again the flat edge of my paintbrush, and I'm not going to paint like this, I'm going to have it kind of perpendicular to the canvas. And that way you can get a really nice control over the line that goes down. And I'm just going to drag that to the side to create the line of my sea. And it's almost like carving into the painting. Okay, once I've got that base kind of layer down, we can kind of start building upon that now. So what I'm going to do is take some white into that same mixture and a little bit of green. And I'm going to kind of do the same thing, just kind of working sideways with my brush. Just to add in a little bit of depth there. Good, I like that. Okay, so let's continue that on. Next what I'm going to do is add a little bit more white again, but this time add a little bit of orange. And I need a bit more white here. Just going to top up my white. You do go through a lot of titanium white. So yeah, I'm going to basically recreate more of that colour. So we want a little bit of the phthalo blue, a little bit of green, and a little bit of orange. It's kind of going to reflect the sky a little bit. And just going side to side again with my brush. And I'm using the paint quite thick here. This paint is quite thick because I'm starting to build up the layers, the texture. You don't want to skimp on paint. Just using the paintbrush side to side so it picks up that lovely texture of the canvas. This is what's going to give it a bit of an impressionistic feel. And now what we want to do is add a lot more white and a little bit more orange as we go into the sands. Now, a lot of people go straight for the orange or like a brown for sand, but actually as you look this, because it's a reflection of the sky almost, it's almost a little bit grey. And that's why we're going to use the blue and the orange together to kind of knock each other out, because they're opposite on the colour wheel. They kind of knock each other's saturation down to create these beautiful greys. And it's these beautiful greys that we see in the seaside a lot of the time, especially the British seaside. A lot of it's grey a lot of the time, and that's how you create these lovely greys. We don't ever want to, especially when we're thinking about seascapes, we don't ever want to use black and white, just black and white to create grey, but we want to do it using colour. I'm also just going to blend out that line a little bit so there's not a harsh line. Okay, so that's kind of like the first layer to our painting. I'm going to let that completely dry now, and then we can start to go on and build up these layers and build up the story around the painting. I'm going to rinse off my brush really well. And I might grab a coffee and we'll come back once this layer has dried. I'm also going to rinse off my water because it's very blue, and I get some clean water. Okay, so once that's pretty much dried, we can go in and add in some clouds, unless of course you want it to be serene blue. I'm going to add in some clouds. Again, as I said, this is a British landscape and there will be clouds around. So we're going to be adding kind of like a mid-tone. So it's very tempting to go straight in with white when we think about cloud, but we're actually going to go for probably just a fraction darker than the sky. So I want you to take some phthalo blue, and we're going to add in a little bit of orange and some white. And that's a very nice kind of bluey grey colour. Feel free to just keep on mixing until you've got something that you're happy with. And I'm maybe going to think about popping in these clouds maybe slightly differently. You can think about what cloud formations that you kind of want to add. And what I'm doing is I'm just popping the paint down. I'm kind of using like a circular motion to pop in these clouds. And I'm going to bring some up here to the sky. I'm just kind of going round, using the shape of my brush to put these down. So that's like a nice grey colour. Next, what I'm going to do is, I don't know whether to go darker or lighter first. I think I'm going to go darker first. So I'm going to add in a little bit more phthalo blue into that same mixture, and a little bit more orange. And I'm going to use that to kind of blend into what we've done. So it's up to you. You can use like a separate brush to do that, or as long as you wash your hands after, you can just use your finger a little bit here and there. And I'm just kind of build that up a little bit using brush strokes, going round and round, just building up that depth a little bit. Okay, that's fine. And then I think I might leave it there for that. Then I'm just going to rinse off my brush, and we can go over with some lighter tones now. So I'm going to take some white, and you can use a little bit of what we've already done to create a nice light blue. And again, I'm going to focus in on the top of the clouds now. I'm kind of going over what we've put down, but just adding that little bit of a layer. And what really helps me with clouds especially, but anything in painting, is to kind of, before I put down a brush stroke, kind of imagine what it's going to look like before I put it down. And that way you can put down brush strokes very intentionally rather than just kind of like going through the motions of painting and not really considering what's going down. So I'm just kind of majorly focusing on the outline of the cloud and then just using my finger just to smudge that in a little bit. And it's not really advisable to get paint on your finger. If you want to use a glove to be more careful, that's probably a great idea. Probably something that I should do myself. And at this point, all our clouds will look slightly different. So just kind of like think about the way your clouds are looking, and they'll be taking on their own story by now. And that's the beautiful thing about these tutorials, is that even though we're all doing the same painting, they're all going to look slightly different, and I love that. Okay, and then once you're kind of done with that, I'm just going to rinse off my brush, and then I'm going to create an even lighter shade yet. You can use white straight out of the two, but I prefer just to take the edge off slightly, just with a little bit of blue. I'm going to use mainly the corner of my brush and just pick out some little moments, just kind of going around the edges of the clouds, just using little bits here and there. And a lot of the time I'm kind of letting my brush just kind of dance across the canvas, picking up little areas. I'm not worrying too much about where I'm placing these. And that's what's nice, because it gives it a very organic feel without it looking too placed. And if there's something you don't like, you can either just erase it or we can paint over it once it's dry. So please don't over worry about this being perfect. I like to add a lot of different layers, so I can kind of go in and out and correct things and change things. Okay, I'm happy with that though. You could carry on working on it forever, honestly. So I'm going to rinse off my brush and we can start working on the rest of the painting. So I'm just going to add, I think I actually quite like this land in the background the way it is. It's very like hazy, but I might just add a little bit onto this front bit of land. What though? That's the question. I think what I want to do is add a little bit of green with some orange. And just get like a very dull kind of green. And I'm going to pop that on the top. And that's kind of going to be the grassy bit, the land. I'm not going to overthink it too much. I might add just a little bit of white and a bit more green, just to give it a little bit of a highlight. And then I'm going to rinse off my brush. And then probably add in again some of that cliff. So I'm going to take some of the orange, some of the blue, to create kind of like a dark brown. And then again, using the shape of my brush, I'm just going to bring that down. And just let my brush do most of the work here. And then just to finish it off, I'm just kind of going to move that sideways. And then I think what I'm going to do is take some of the white and just pick out a little bit of a grey, and then just pulling that down just to add a little bit of interest, give that kind of cliff a little bit of character. And I think I'll leave it there. I'm just going to rinse off my brush because I really want to focus in on the ocean mostly. And whilst I see it, there's just a little bit on the horizon that's bugging me, so I'm just going to take this light blue and just kind of correct that. Usually when I'm making a correction, I'll correct it from both sides. So I've popped on the sky again, and then I'll go on with some of the blue again. Just kind of redefine that line. Okay, so next what I think would be nice is for us to add that kind of green wave. So what we need to do is take some of the phthalo blue and some of the green to get a really nice kind of turquoisey colour. And then I'm going to have a think about where I want this. Kind of want it to be here, and I'm just going to drag my brush across to create that wave. And I'm letting like the bottom of the brush kind of pick up that canvas texture, because that will just help the organic feel. And then potentially what I'd like to do is add in some further kind of greeniness into that. So I'm going to take some of the green and add some white, and I'm just going to see how I feel about that. It's a little bit light. I might add in just, I might add this in a very small amount just along the top. Just to give that a little bit of depth, but I don't want to do that too much so that it becomes unrealistic. And then I'm going to rinse off my brush. And then at the bottom of that wave, we kind of want a phthalo blue, a phthalo green with a little bit of the orange, because it's kind of churning up the sea, right? And that needs to be at the bottom of the wave. So we can pop that in. But what I'd like to do is kind of use the brush to bring that up into the wave. And then what we'll do is we will use a bit of the phthalo blue with some white and a little bit of orange, just to create kind of like a greyish blue again. And we can kind of use our brush to kind of cut into the bottom of that, where then the reflection of the water kind of meets that, like so. Okay, then I'm going to rinse off my brush. I'm going to get some more white. So I think we can start adding in some of the white water. When you think about a white wave, it's so tempting again to go in straight with the white. But what we're going to do is create kind of like a shadow blue. So using the white and a bit of phthalo blue, you'll actually see that underneath a wave, it is a blue. Maybe even a tiny bit of orange. And we can use this for the beginning of our waves. So what I kind of want you to do is kind of frantically, ferociously, you can use your brush, or you can also use your palette knife and get some on the side and kind of move this around. We're going to start adding in some of these waves. So it's totally up to you if you want to use the brush. If you're using the brush, you can, what I would suggest is kind of going around almost in like circular movements. Just going to make that colour again really quick. In fact, it's even quite nice in a darker colour too, like a darker blue, because you can kind of see that underneath a little bit of orange actually. It's more of like a bluey dark grey. You can kind of see that underneath the white waves. So it's quite nice to add that. So yeah, you can use a brush kind of picking that up, or if you want to take some on the edge of the palette knife, just the edge, and you kind of want to go around in a circular motion. So what we're doing now, although it doesn't look like a white wave, what we're doing is creating the foundation for the white wave to sit on. We're creating the shadow parts of the wave, because then when we put the white wave on top, it will sit on top of these nicely, and this will be the shadow. And this is one of the biggest tips to make your kind of seascapes look a lot more lifelike. And we can also kind of take that on our palette knife all the way across and kind of perpendicular to the canvas. Just kind of move that around, pick up some of that texture. Okay, so next what we'll do, while we're waiting for that to dry, before we go on with the white kind of waves, we'll do the same for the wave down here. Now you can see that this one is not as bluey, but it's a lot more orangey. So we're going to take some of the orange, and we are going to add in a little bit of the phthalo blue as well. It's going to be quite like a deep shade of orange, maybe more like a brown, and we can kind of come in and kind of map out where we want this other wave to be and start marking that in. So again, you could use the brush like I'm doing now and just kind of go around in a circular movement, or you can take the palette knife and kind of add that in. Also, what I'm thinking about doing is, while we've got this colour, I'd like to add in a little bit of texture into the sand because it looks very flat at the moment. So I'm going to take that colour all over my palette knife and move it up and down perpendicular to the canvas. And you can also take your brush, kind of take that perpendicular again, take it side to side, add some of that texture. Okay, that's great. And I think also what I'm going to do is add some white to that colour. So it's kind of like the same colour, but a little bit of a lighter version. And I'm also going to start adding in that into the sanding areas too. And probably also in the water a little bit. So it's funny, isn't it? Because we think so much of a seascape and waves is white, and yet we haven't actually added any white onto this so far, and you can kind of see what it's going to be anyway. I'm just going to put my palette knife in the water and use a bit of paper towel just to clean that. So now what we really want to do is completely wait for this to dry now, because when we start going in with some of the highlights, which is what we're going to do next, with some of that white, we really don't want it to pick up what's underneath. So let's wait for this to fully dry. I'm going to make a coffee and I'll see you back here when it's dried. Okay, so next I'm going to add in some of the kind of white waves that you can see. To do that, I'm going to use a palette knife. So let's start mixing the colour. We don't want to go straight in with white because we want to use that maybe as a highlight right at the end. So I'm going to take some of the white and add in a little bit of phthalo blue, not too much, I'm running out of palette space. A little bit of the green, just to get a really nice light colour, and then add in some more white. So it's not white, but it's a very, very light colour. What can be helpful as well, if you get some on your palette knife, just kind of hold it up and see how it feels. And yeah, that feels really good to me. So I'm just going to clean my palette knife now so that it's a really nice kind of clean palette knife ready to pop on some paint. And I'm just going to put the paint just on this edge here. So I'm just going to scoop some of that up. And you can see it's just there on that side. Now very, very carefully, I'm going to really think intentionally about where I want these little highlights to go. I want them to be at the top of the wave, and I could just pop on a line. And also, I should mention, if you feel like you've got too much paint, you can just pat it on your palette knife to take off any excess. And then I can just bring that down. And what will happen using the palette knife is very scary because it takes away basically all the control that you feel like you have. And it kind of just like picks up parts of the canvas. And then for like the white water bit, I'm just going to use like a circular motion to give the effect of that kind of crashing down. And I would always say that in moments like this, less is more. It can be very tempting to add like a huge wave, but actually just having these little moments of the highlights can be a lot more dramatic than having it everywhere. And just kind of blending that through. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. Now let's move on to the next bit. So we're going to get the same mixture, and feel free to remake some if you need some more. I'm going to add it on my palette knife, and then this one is a little bit more light. So I'm just going to use a circular motion, just going around and around, just on top of that which we've done. And if we need a bit more, it was white, a bit of phthalo blue, a bit of phthalo green. And then just kind of going round and round in a circular motion to kind of give that effect of the waves crashing down. I'm going to go a bit bigger this side to give that illusion of it's getting smaller as it goes a little bit more into the distance. Okay, great job. And then next we're going to do this one here. I think what we can do with this one is add in a little bit of orange just to warm it up, because it's going to be churning up the sand a little bit. So we want it to be kind of like a very light orangey grey, like so. And again, just want to kind of go in a circular motion. And kind of go on top of that darker line, because that's going to be the shadow underneath it. Okay, great job. Really, really great. Just kind of go over any areas that you think needs a little bit more. And I would definitely advise to go slow and steady. Now you can just kind of rinse off your palette knife and wipe it clean on a paper towel, pop that to the side. Next I'm going to take my brush and just make sure it's clean. And take off the excess water, just so it's just nicely damp. And I'm going to take that same paint mixture, and I'm going to start to pop in, just using the corner of my brush, side of my brush. I think I need a little bit more paint actually. You can kind of see a lot of the white water that's on top of the wave. I'm just going to start to add in some of that now using the corner of my brush. And also down here, you can kind of just see little pockets of it. Okay, and I'm going to rinse off my brush. And I'm just going to get that mixture that we had for there again. I think it was that mixture, but a little bit more phthalo blue and phthalo green and white. And once I have that, I'm going to do the same just above here, just very, very small, using the corner of my brush, just picking up some of that white water, some of the reflections. When I say white water, what I mean is like the foam that you can kind of see on top of the water. You can even use a little bit of that in the distance for like distant waves. You want to be very light. Okay. Then we're getting really close, guys. Next, what I want to do is start to add some more reflections on kind of this sandy bed. So I'm going to reflect the sky. So to do that, I'm going to take some of the phthalo blue and some white with a little bit of orange. And I'm going to start to add kind of just a little bit of sand texture. I'm going to take some of my palette knife and in little areas just kind of pop in some of those bluey tones. This is going to be reflecting the sky. And I know this kind of feels like a little bit crazy, but this is what's going to give it that feeling of wet sand. Because when it's wet sand, it actually is just reflecting the sky. I'm going to add some white into that mixture. And pick up a little bit of that orange that's underneath. And then I'm kind of going to go over again. This time I'm going to use a side to side, back and forth kind of feeling. And we can also kind of go up and down too, to really give that feeling of something reflecting. And I think we can probably even go lighter still with a very, very light colour. And just pick out some little highlights. The sand reflecting the sky. Okay, and you can just keep on playing with that, make it your own, really get it to a place where you feel really happy with it. And I'm going to just rinse off my brush, so I just realised I've left that out. Okay, and then for the last step, I'm going to take some more white and we're going to add our final waves coming down. For that, I'm going to just take the edge off slightly with a little bit of the orange and blue mixture that's kind of already on my palette. I do want it to feel white. I just want it to be a slight off white. So like this, just ever so slightly off white from the white that's straight in the tube. I'm going to take that on my palette knife right on the tip, and I'm going to start to very carefully just add a little bit of that highlight. Now we don't want to go too crazy on this. We don't want to go over everything that we've done. We just want it to kind of rest on top, just pick up some of those highlights so that you can still see what we've done underneath. And it just gives another layer to that water. And it also adds a really beautiful texture as well. And I think I'm just going to be careful about how much I add in this back wave. I think I'm just going to add just a little bit there. Maybe a little bit here. Don't want to add too much, just to highlight. Okay, and then I'm gonna just wipe off my palette knife. And now at this point, all our paintings will look very different, and it's totally up to you if you want to carry on working on it or you want to add any layers, kind of take anything away. I think what I want to do is kind of just knock back this little patch, or maybe I say knock back, maybe what I need to do is actually add a bit more to kind of make it feel a little bit more intentional. So I think what I'm going to do is just kind of take that there into the composition a little bit more, and a little bit more down here too. And what I might do is add a little bit more orange and a little bit more white, and kind of just bring in this sandy colour a little bit more. And then I'm just going to go straight back into that blue and kind of blend that a little bit. Okay. It's just really playing around until you're happy with those marks, and it's really nice to experiment as well. You can take the palette knife in and just keep on playing around, but I think I'm happy with that, and I think for me that is finished. So yeah, I'm just going to let that dry now. Well, that was amazing. Thank you so much for painting along with me in today's tutorial where we created a beautiful seascape. And as I mentioned in the beginning, please don't forget to sign up for this 3-step seascape painting workshop. In this workshop, you'll learn the 3-step process for taking any reference photo and turning it into a stunning painting in a loose and impressionistic style, and I think you're going to really love it. So if you're looking for that kind of loose and impressionistic feeling in your painting, this workshop will be perfect for you, and it's completely free. I'd love for you to enjoy it. So that's an exclusive invitation for those that are on my mailing list. I'll pop the link to that in the description box and in the comment section, and I really hope you enjoy it. But just thank you again so much for following through that tutorial with me. If you would like to show me what you've created, please do post it on Instagram and tag me in at Katie Jobling Art. I'd love to see. Cool. Well, I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys.